Good evening. And welcome. I know some of us have been boiling sap all day. Had time to grab a few mouthfuls of corn chowder before coming down. I'm Jim Miller, your town moderator. Having lived now more than half my life in Canterbury, I am officially no longer new to town. But for those of you who are new to town, tonight will be part of a great New Hampshire tradition, the town meeting. So look around, memorize all these faces and the plaids on the flannel shirts. At this time, I'd like to ask any veterans of the armed forces or anyone currently active in the military or the guard to stand or raise your hands so that we can recognize and honor you for your service. Everyone, please join our veterans by standing as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Be led by Evan Christensen. Flags in the back. He is a University of New Hampshire undergrad. He's a presenter of historical programs through the library and a member of the Canterbury Tricentennial Committee.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed. You may be seated. Speaking of things historical, Fred Brewster, president of the Historical Society, and Naomi Scanlon, chair of the Tricentennial Committee, would like a few brief moments of your time.
I'm Fred Brewster.
And by the way, you're using the mic tonight for all of you, right in front of your mouth.
Like this.
Perfect.
I'm Fred Brewster. I moved to Canterbury 7 years ago. Jim Miller tells me I haven't even unpacked. And now I'm president of the Historical Society. What I want to talk to you about is the Tricentennial Committee. The Board of Selectmen.
Closer.
Right here. Not used to this.
I know.
The Board of Selectmen established the Tricentennial Committee to honor Canterbury's people in amazing history. The mission of the Tricentennial Committee is to create, organize, and administer celebratory events that will take place in 2027. That's the year of the Tricentennial. I have always been impressed by the spirit in Canterbury of people coming together, being generous with their time, and volunteering, and that's what we're asking for tonight. For people in the community to volunteer with your experience, creativity, and energy. If you want to know more about what's going on in the society, you can go to the Historical Society's website, www.canterburyhistory.org, or the town website. The structure that has been set up is that the Tricentennial Committee is a subcommittee of the Historical Society. So Naomi will be coming along with 10 other committee leaders once a month to give us an update as to what's going on. So I'll turn things over to Naomi to tell people what events are planned and where to register. Thank you.
Hello. So we have 11 enthusiastic and energetic, mind-whirling members of the committee. Beth Blair, Bill Adams, Bob Scarponi, Aaron Meeker, Evan Christensen, Mark Stevens, Sam Paps, Scott Doherty, our selecting rep, Stephanie Jackson, Teresa Wyman, and myself as co-chair. Without a co-chair, but we're working on that. That should be solved by the 20th, I'm hoping. We're up and running now. piece of this item is a piece of paper explaining the subcommittee and a little survey. And since we are not doing this ourselves, the town is doing this. We will lead you, but we're going to do this together as a town. So we need your help. We need your ideas, what you want, what would you like to do. We're hoping that it'll be fun, it'll be memorable, and historic. So if you fill those papers out tonight, we have boxes at all 3 doors that you can leave your ideas in. And then the boxes after tonight are going to go to the Canterbury store, the library, and the town office. So if you missed tonight, tell your friends, tell your family, and we'll get those ideas. We've come up with, a couple we've come up with are a time capsule, parades, dinners, picnics, dances, a play. So go from there. And even though I've said those, if that's what you'd like to see, write it down, because then we know you really want to have it. And don't hesitate to call on any of us at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over the past year, we've lost too many of our cherished residents, including some longtime public servants and volunteers, and I refer you to page 92 of the town report. You'll see some very familiar names there, each with an inspiring story. Far too many for the short time we have tonight, but I want to briefly call your attention to one whose passing is not listed in this year's report because it happened at the beginning of January, and that would be Sumner Dolly. Besides being a wonderful family man, he was a forester, a volunteer, an educator, a member of numerous town committees. He was Shaker Regional School Board Chair at one time, and most recently, School District Moderator. Now, I ask for a moment of silence to honor all these people who have touched our collective lives and who have departed since last spring. Thank you. As we move into the business portion of the meeting, I want to go over some housekeeping items. Double check, make sure you've checked in at the supervisor's table and that you have a yes, no, green and red card. There are extra copies of the town report at the table. Again, hopefully you've got yours. The report this year is dedicated to Howard Moffat and Lois Scribner, devoted community volunteers and public servants extraordinaire. Certainly a loss for us. They moved in 2024 to Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, to be closer to family. Please note the location of the fire exits. And if you are on a wing exit row, the flight crew will give you additional instructions. We have some information displays in the back. Canterbury Community Farmers Market, where you can become a member and get a snack. You know, let's hope we're not here too long so you get too hungry, but really good stuff. Also, friends of the Elkins Public Library invited a special guest, Dolly Parton. Anyway, I will leave it at that, but you can get a picture with her. Her program is famous nationally for getting kids to read, and she is going to be affiliated with our library, so that's pretty cool. Window dressers have a couple of tables. They are sponsored by the Energy Committee. The window dressers panels have saved a lot of energy this winter. They're pretty amazing for such a simple little gizmo. And we also have a report reporter from the Concord Monitor here, Rebecca, who's sitting over there. They are going around to different town meetings and seeing if there are residents who want to talk to them about how their taxes impact their daily lives. Okay, so if you're interested, at the end of the meeting, please go and see Rebecca. You want to raise your hand, just to make sure? Okay. All right. If this is your first town meeting, please raise your hand. Welcome. All right, to begin, I'd like to recognize and express my gratitude to our fantastic Tuesday election team, Assistant Town Moderator Kathy Doherty, our Select Board, Police Chief, and Sam Papps, Town Clerk, John O'Connor and crew for setting up then and also tonight. Our ballot clerks and counters, Mary Hoffman, Cal McKay, Jesse Lozier, who's the Deputy Town Clerk, BJ Entwistle, Ray Chesley, Kelly Papps, Sherry Johnston, and Beth McQuinn. If that is not a power team, I don't know what is. Also the supervisors of the checklist, Brenda Murray, Denise Soika, and Pam Smarling. It was a very long day, but we finally wrapped up around 10:30. We were only that late because we had to hand count the school ballots in detail. But that'll be not the case anymore, so that was a good thing, and a good exercise. And I want to thank all of you who voted on Tuesday. Second, introducing the folks on the platform tonight. Town Administrator Ken Folsom could not be here with us, but we have our Select Board, Scott Doherty, Kent Ruswick, and Beth Blair, and Sam Papps. Sam will be taking the minutes, so you know what that means. I used to pride myself when I was out there trying to get in the minutes every year with that little budget question. You don't have to do that, but anyway, it's a thing. Without objection, I would like to grant the right of voice without vote to a few non-residents, Mike Gamache, Justin Crotty, and John O'Connor, in the event they need to answer questions related to any of the warrant articles, etc. Is there any objection? Seeing none. Edgar Rivera will be recording the meeting tonight. Thanks, Edgar, for providing a rather invaluable resource to the town. So here are the rules for speaking. Practice respect and civility at all times. It's okay to disagree, but it is not okay to be disagreeable or disrespectful. Address all comments to me, the moderator. If you're asking a question, you may follow up or clarify. Before speaking, please raise your hand and be called on by the moderator. Come to the mic stand in the center of the room, or if you can't do that easily, wait for the microphone to come to you. Kathy has the microphone, the other one. It's important that everyone can hear you. We already talked about the microphone distance and the fact that we want to use a microphone for everyone. The first time you are recognized to speak, please state your name and where in town you live. For additional comments later, please state your name. This is important for the minutes, and it helps me out too. Not that I can promise I will remember, but it's helpful. I, as moderator, will recognize those who have not yet spoken to an issue before anyone who has spoken previously can come back around and add to their comments. Canterbury residents only may speak, unless, as I did before, someone is granted voice without vote. And please add to previous comments. Do not just repeat what has been said before, no matter how wildly enthusiastic you are about what was said. Anyway, that'll help us speed through the meeting. If you wish to call the question, you must raise your hand and be recognized first. Calling the question before people have had an opportunity to present the essentials of a warrant article, or before, let's see, before it turns the papers over. Before people have had at least some opportunity to ask questions or speak to the issue, is in direct opposition to the point of town meeting, which is for townspeople to make informed decisions on behalf of the entire community. You are the legislative body tonight for our town. Calling the question motions must be seconded and passed by a 2/3 majority vote. Rules for motions. We follow simplified rules of order. Motions must be moved and seconded. State your name and where you live clearly so that Sam can capture it. And the mover will have the first right to speak after the presenter of each warrant article has finished introducing it. All amendments, if there are any, must be given to the town clerk in writing and readable before we vote. And of course, if there are amendments, we will vote on each amendment and then go on to finish discussion on the amended or not amended warrant article, and then we'll have our final vote. One motion or amendment at a time. Any amendments involving money must include a dollar amount. Please be aware, though, that we are bound by certain restrictions from state laws and the Department of Revenue Administration when it comes to altering expenditure amounts or purposes of warrant articles. Okay, these rules can be altered by you, the assembled town meeting voters, by majority vote. If you believe that I, as moderator, have erred in terms of procedure, you may request a point of order, and the meeting will decide. Again, a majority vote is required to overrule the moderator. It's not a power trip, believe me. It's a lot of work. I would next like to recognize Select Board Chair Scott Doherty, who has some brief comments honoring 2 of our citizens.
I'm going to use Jim's microphone. The lectern tonight is moderator height, so I want you guys here to be able to see it there. Kent, would you stand, please? So we're honoring Kent tonight and thanking him for his service as a selectman. But those of you that know Kent know that he has served this town for decades. I think just about every board or committee or capacity that there is. And I know Kent well enough to know that this is not the end of his service to the town. I'm sure it will continue after tonight. So a little token from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe Holland, are you here? I didn't think I saw Joe. So I'll be stopping by Joe's house at some point soon. This is a certificate of appreciation from the town. For those of you that know Joe, he served on the ZBA for 40 years. Just an incredible record of service. So we wanted to honor him, hopefully in person, but I will be stopping by and presenting this to Joe. So I hope we can at least applaud loud enough that he'll hear it.
All right. I have a communications question. Please raise your hand if you regularly read the monthly town newsletter.
Yes.
These are the informed people. Please raise your hand if you receive and read the weekly townwide email. If you don't, you can sign up for it. Lots of stuff. I want to see who goes on the Canterbury Facebook page or the new Canterbury, New Hampshire residents page on Facebook. Okay. Do you look at the town website? All right. The point of that is, if you didn't raise your hand, because can see there are a lot of opportunities for finding out what's going on and really fun things that are going on as well as official stuff. Let's begin with the results of, how many times have we begun this meeting? Let's begin with the results of Tuesday's voting, especially for those of you who haven't seen them posted or weren't in the town hall at 10:30 that night, after about 14 hours on duty when they were announced. Results of the Shaker Regional School voting. School District Moderator, Heidi Cheney, 1,100 votes and 6 write-in votes. Belmont School Board Rep, Sean Embry, 760 votes over Ann Cheshire at 420. Now these are the combined results of the 2 towns. 7 write-in votes. Canterbury Board Member in a very tight race. Caitlin Fain, 568 votes over Edgar Rivera, 523 write-in votes. And I wanted to congratulate both Canterbury candidates for caring so much about our kids and communities that they're running for office. Edgar received the most votes. Edgar received the most votes in Canterbury and Caitlin the most overall, but as you heard, it was quite close. Article 3, the school district budget, passed 673 to 595. Note that Canterbury's majority of voting in favor of the budget was enough to overcome Belmont's majority voting against it. Article 4, Facilities and Grounds Expendable Trust, passed 796 to 470. Article 5, Technology Expendable Trust, passed 840 to 400. Article 6, Food Service Equipment Expendable Trust, passed 893 to 349. Article 7, Special Ed Expendable Trust, passed 864 to 374. And Article 8, Adoption of an Official Budget Committee, failed 849 to 390. So now the town election results. 416 votes were cast, including 11 absentee. Article 1, to choose all necessary town officers for the year ensuing. I would like to thank everyone who ran for elected office this year in town. You are to be congratulated for stepping up for consideration, even though no one was opposed. There was some interesting write-ins. The more people that get involved, the stronger our community becomes. For selectman, Todd Calvin has been elected. Sorry, why is there? Oh. You know I don't make that mistake. Anyway, Calvin Todd, 309 votes. Sam Pass, the town clerk tax collector, 405 votes. 362 votes for treasurer. Moderator, Jim Miller, 390 votes. For planning board, Joshua Gordon, and 347 votes, and Brendan O'Donnell, 317 votes, and there were 6 write-ins. Cemetery trustee, if he wasn't busy enough already, Sam Paps, 395 votes. Prairie trustees, there were 2 positions. Linda Reindude got 363 votes. Ron Ruthier got 322. And another library trustee, 2 positions for 3 years. Ray Craigie, 352 votes, and Rick Zeller, 351. And trustee of the trust funds, 1 position for 3 years, Tiffany Brown, 370 votes. Now, I will refer you to pages, let's see, before I do that, if you ran for election in town and you won, don't forget to come up to the podium after the meeting to be sworn into the position. Your job starts or restarts right then. Thanks. So if you refer to pages 10 through 12 in your town report, as I read these articles, just in case you have forgotten what they were about, because I'm not going to read them. Article 2 passed 228 to 143. Article 3 passed 305 to 93. Article 4 passed 286 to 110. Article 5 passed 251 to 134. And Article 6 passed 343 to 59. All right, before we start Article 7, without objection, I am changing the order to address Article 19 right after Article 10. This was requested by a citizen, and it makes sense in order to determine if all necessary funds will be available for Article 10 if it is approved. And I want to see, are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, we will begin. Again. New beginnings are a good thing. Let's see. Article 3. No. Article 7. So many. All right. Article 7. To see, yeah, I just got through the fourth right away. Article 7. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,485,250 for general municipal operations. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen. And Scott Doherty will address this.
All right, obviously. So I'm going to, as been our past practice, I'll give a report and then we'll take questions after. So I'll start by beginning a report on the town's 2024 budget and present financial picture and then the town's 2025 budget. So this year, because of the school tax situation, the Board of Selectmen decided to use $500,000 of our unreserved fund balance to help with taxes this past year. For those unfamiliar with the process for setting the final tax rate, this means that we took $500,000 of our savings to reduce the amount needed to be raised by taxation. While the Select Board uses some unreserved fund balance to reduce taxes almost every year, an assist of this magnitude is a one-time fix. It was to ease the pain of a December tax bill that was much higher than the previous June bill. In other words, we can't do this again. We just can't sustain this level. Hopefully in 2025, the June and December bills will be relatively consistent. So with all that said, I'm happy to tell you that overall the town's finances remain strong. We still have a healthy but not excessive unreserved fund balance of $1,408,380. The amount of this fund balance is within the range suggested by the State Department of Revenue Administration, DRA, and we also have a healthy capital reserve savings of $1,042,701. So with respect to last year's budget, we underspent our 2024 budget by $219,365, despite several large unexpected bills for equipment repair. Not all of this budget performance was intentional or even a good idea. The highway department was chronically understaffed last year, and it resulted in significant underspending on wages, personnel administration, and projects. We're happy to report that we finally have some help for the road agent, and the road agent is to be commended for his perseverance, and there is much work to catch up on in the coming year. We are not overburdened by debt. The Gold Star bond retires this year. The Morrill Road Bridge, Command Car, and Police Cruiser bond retires in 2026. and the bond for the new fire engine will begin payment in 2026. So by the end of 2026, we will be down to only one bond payment. Our long-term debt payments were an exceptionally low 3.6 of the total operating expense last year. I'm happy to report that all warrant articles that were approved at last year's town meeting have been successfully completed. Among those were an upgrade to the town's website, which it looks like many of you have looked at. And it's a much simpler, much more attractive website. So in addition to that, repairs to the gazebo railing in the town center have been completed. Gutters have been installed at the meeting house, and the mini split for the Historical Society has been installed. At last year's town meeting, we announced that broadband service will be coming to Canterbury. And as we sit here, Comcast is nearing completion of this project. There were some delays due to supply chain issues, but as of today, there were approximately 20 residences that are still awaiting service. An update on the status of the new fire engine. Chief, the last word we had was delivery May of 2026.
Yes, approximately.
Okay. And I think typical lead times still are, believe it or not, 27 to 36 months. So hopefully we'll see it early in 2026. Repairs will commence summer of 2025 to selected areas of dirt road, paid for by a $257,956 Federal American Rescue Plan Act grant. We have contracted with R.D. Edmonds for materials, and our own highway department will manage the project and do the equipment part of the work. So moving on to the 2025 budget. As we prepared the 2025 budget, the select board focused on trying to retain employees and recruit high-quality new employees. This difficulty with employee recruitment and retention is certainly not unique to Canterbury. The proposed operating budget for 2025 is up 4.9% from last year. We continue to deal with the effects of inflation and wage growth in 2025. We had multiple employees resign in 2024, and we continue to have difficulty retaining employees and filling vacant positions. We must have a wage and benefit structure that is competitive. The effective stewardship of taxpayer funds in 2024 and the relatively small increase in our 2025 budget is directly due to the efforts of our town administrator, department heads, town employees, and volunteers. The select board wishes to thank all of them for their careful spending of town funds. Wages. Eligible town employees were given 4% salary raises, and just for reference, the consumer price index rose by 3% in 2024. The town's healthcare insurance budget line item rose by 43% this year. We changed our budgeting practice to reflect what the cost would be if all eligible employees in the highway department took health insurance. For now, we are fortunate to have several employees who do not take town health insurance. Overall, the cost for our insurance plans remained level for 2024, and we added a second option that saved the town a little over $20,000, Count, if I memory serves? $21,000, thank you. The town's cost for workers' compensation and liability insurance have both increased. Why? Because of the risk pool that we were in and the fact that we had a few claims. So with respect to the land use administrator position, this was a new position that we created last year, and it was to assist the planning and zoning boards, the Historic District Commission, and the Conservation Commission. After a long search, we were able to fill this position, only to have the new person resign a few months later. We now have Jan Stout acting as a temporary land use administrator while we continue to search for a new replacement. We have slightly increased the 2025 salary in an attempt to attract applicants. Building inspector wages. The budgeted amount you'll note is the same as last year, $17,000. The income we received from permit fees was $21,204. So this amount more than covers the inspector's budgeted salary And the permit fee income in 2025 may change. There's no way of predicting that. You'll note differences in several wage lines were due to unfilled vacancies in the police department and the highway department. We just had a full-time police officer resign a few weeks ago, and we continue to search for a full-time laborer for the highway department. We also have an unfilled part-time position at the transfer station. So looking at the police department, we've hired 2 new full-time police officers in 2024. And both Chief Mike LeBrecq and Lieutenant Mike Rockwell have retired. So we wish them both in retirement and thank them for their many years of service. We congratulate Justin Crotty, who is here tonight, on his promotion to chief. And we also promoted Christopher Dupuy to lieutenant. Both Chief Crotty and Lieutenant Dupuy have decades of law enforcement experience, and we're fortunate to have both of them available to serve. Turning to the fire department, last year full-time Lieutenant EMT Dave Nelson retired. We decided to eliminate the full-time EMT position, saving the cost of healthcare and retirement. That position will be filled by a regular part-time employee. And Herb, I saw you somewhere. Herb, if you would stand up. This is Herb Batchelor. Herb is a firefighter paramedic who will be working 3 days a week. And the rest of the shifts will be filled by part-timers. So thanks, Herb. And finally, as I told him I would, Calvin, if you would stand. Calvin, as you heard, was elected to the select board. So Calvin, welcome. We look forward to working with you. Thank you. And that's all I've got, so we'll take questions at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could get a motion from the floor for the budget. Yes. Polly, Mary. Thank you. A second?
Rick Crockford.
Thank you, Rick. Any discussion or questions? And if you have them, please come to the mic.
First, I want to congratulate everybody who worked on this budget. This was a hard thing to do. I know you spent many, many, many hours poring over all of this, and I thank you for your diligence. I found one thing, and I'm not trying to get into the ministry. I found one thing that I just have to know about, which is under cruiser maintenance, number 4210.7, gas and oil. 2024 budget was $12,000. Actual was 9 and change, and the budget for 2025 is $15,000. Can somebody explain why it's gone up, where we didn't use what we needed last year, what we budgeted last year? It's on page 20. 4210.7.
Chief, would you like to?
4210.7 on page 20.
So last year we had.
Do you want to come up to the microphone in front? The spare mic.
So last year we had one officer with a take-home cruiser. This year they all have take-home cruisers. Is that better? Last year we had one officer with a take-home cruiser. We now offer it to all full-time officers. It was a benefit to get more officers to come work here.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? But not Fred.
Hi, Bob Steenson, Hackleboro Road. I just wanted to comment on Scott's presentation. For those of you that are new to town, just what a big deal it is that there's broadband everywhere in this community right now. I want you to know that that project began, Mike, correct me, 1996 is when cable TV came to Canterbury. And since then, we've been trying to get it extended everywhere. And we would be remiss in this meeting if we did not acknowledge the efforts of our town administrator, Ken Polson. who has been tirelessly pushing every resource that we have and has developed a great relationship with the Comcast people. I will also go out onto thin, crackling ice and say that the reason the project happened was due to federal money that came in from the Biden administration to finish the wiring. So whatever your thoughts are about what we spend our federal dollars on, that was a win for our town. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we will vote on Article 7. All those in favor, raise your green cards. Any opposed, red cards? Budget passes. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $88,000 to be deposited into the following capital reserves. And there's a chart on page 13. Majority vote is required, recommended by the selectmen. And I'll take a motion, put it on the floor. Dale? Thank you. And a second. Judy Nelson? Thank you. Beth, you're going to be speaking to this?
Good evening. So this is the standard vote to continue putting money into all the capital reserve.
The extra money.
Yeah. Is this better? Okay, so this is the standard vote to continue putting money into the capital reserve accounts. Part of the reason why I think the town is in such good financial standing is that we start saving for these big ticket items way ahead of time. All the individual accounts and balances are listed on page 35 of your town report. The one that was removed was the highway grader, because we just got the new grader. This has a 25-year life expectancy, and so we're not going to start saving for anyone quite yet, but we probably will in about 5 years. So for the moment, the highway grader is off the list. And that's about all I have to say to that. The amounts are there, and this is again a standard vote that we take every year to just make sure we're putting our money away for future needs.
All right.
Big future needs.
Sometimes very big future needs. Judy, do you have a question?
Yes.
Do you want to go to the mic? Or we can bring one to you. It's all just personal preference, that's all.
I just wondered how you determine how much to set aside. Is that based on the projected value and how many years you're going to get the equipment, or on current values? How do you come up with, say, for a highway truck, $30,000 set aside? How do you determine that?
That's an excellent question, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Scott.
So Jody, honestly, it's a little bit of science and a little bit of art. As a for instance, the fire engine that we just approved, what was that, 2 years ago, if I remember, if we were to have to purchase that right now, it would be around $975,000. You know, it's increasing at an astronomical rate. So, yeah, so it's a little bit of art to predict what prices are going to be like 10 or 15 years in the future. So this really represents, I guess, in some cases, our best guess as to what's going to happen with prices. You know, the next time we have to buy a fire engine, unfortunately, I think it'll be over $1 million. So, yeah, and those are just scary big numbers. And if you remember, the grader that we just purchased was $440-ish thousand. So these are big, big, scary numbers, which is why we have these funds established.
Any other questions or comments? Can you come to the mic?
Northwest Road. or right closer, Laura Lockwood, Northwest Road. Without taking a lot of time, we usually vote to put money into more funds that are listed here. Can we just kind of breeze through why the other ones are not needing anything, what the standing is of those? Some of them are projects, like the building maintenance seems kind of low, and I'm not on the trustee of trust funds anymore, so I'm just wondering what's going on with the rest of the list.
Lori, I guess I'll do my best starting from the top of the list. Highway equipment is still there. Highway truck is still there. 35 on the top of the book, 35. Right, the grader is off because we purchased it. Firefighting equipment, Chief, how many grants did we get last year? Chief Marsh? Yeah, so we've been very fortunate with our federal grants, and have purchased new radios, new SCBA's, a new engine is on order, so the fire department is in great shape right now. Conservation is not there. Kelly, any insight into that?
I'm Kelly Short, I'm a member of the Conservation Commission. We, in the past, have sometimes asked for money to be added to the Capital Reserve Fund for conservation, but we also, because of the town's decision back in '89, I think was the original, and it's been revoted several times, we put 100% of our land use change tax penalty fees into a separate conservation fund, and because there's been quite a bit of development land taken out of current use program, the fees from the land use change tax have been rather healthy, so we haven't felt the need to ask for additional funds since we have that second source of income. That changes from, as things, whether there's a lot of development or if we do a big conservation project and wipe out our budget completely, that we might be back in a future budget to ask for an addition to the Capital Reserve Fund as well.
All right, so transfer station upgrades. I see landfill closure, an amount there. Building maintenance is still there. Highway loader, I believe we leased, so that's why that's there. Let's see, Sand Lake House. Correct, yeah, that'll be coming from the Sand Lake House Trust. Fire truck was okay, approved and ordered. Rescue truck is there still. The highway backhoe we leased. And bridge maintenance and construction, I don't think we have any bridge projects on the horizon. So I think that's the list.
Good question, good answers. Any other questions or comments? And we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Article 8, raise your green cards. Any opposed, red cards? Article passes. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,874 to pay principal, $35,000, and interest, $874 on the Gold Star bond. Said amount to be removed from the town's unassigned fund balance. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen, no tax impact. And you won't hear the word Gold Star, perhaps, ever again. Motion to accept?
So moved.
Who was it?
Clifton Matt. So
Cliff
moved.
Matt.
Motion to pay.
And second?
Second.
Kevin Gregg. All right, and Kent, you're going to speak to this briefly.
Yes, so I get to talk to some down that cost you any money for a change. If you go to page 33, your town report, you'll see the complete list of principals and interest on this project. For those of you who are not familiar with Gold Star, it's the Brookford Farm down by the river. I won't go into all the details, but this shows you that our last payment, our principal payment, is $35,000, and our interest is $874. That will close that account out, and it will be the last payment we make on that project. Questions?
All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, green cards? Opposed, red cards? That was terrific. Article passes. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $7,000 for the purchase of a ballot counting device. Said amount to be removed from the town's unassigned fund balance. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen, no tax impact. And Sam Pax is going to address this.
Article 10, voting machine. In 2023, if you look under the budget line 4160.16 voting machine, we've raised $7,000 in our budget by taxation in anticipation of purchasing a new voting machine in that year. However, during the 2023 and 2024 years, the machine was not available because of testing, and we were not able to buy the machine in the anticipated timeline. Last year, we encumbered that money from 23 into 24 in hopes to purchase the machine in 24, but because of the testing, we were not able to buy it. This year, we have put it as a warrant article because this has already been raised by taxation. It lives in the unassigned fund balance. We are going to ask that we use that money to pay for it rather than raise $7,000 a second time by taxation. This item won't have a tax impact because the funds are taken from the unassigned fund balance. Technically, it was already raised through taxes. Question?
Yes, thank you, Brendan. We have a motion and a second. Rachel, thank you very much. Any questions? Old Bessie got us through this election on Tuesday in just fine order, but really, really old. Anyway, any comments or questions? Then we'll take a vote. All in favor, green cards? Any opposed, red cards? Thank you very much. Article passes. So this is where we're going to move Article 19 into. And Article 19 is to see if the town will authorize the selectmen to accept up to $15,000 from the forced distribution of funds from the Sam Lake Trust Fund. The exact dollar amount is to be determined by the trustees of the Sam Lake Trust Fund and distributed to the town by the end of the calendar year. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen, no tax impact. And Scott will address this.
All right, so this money goes into the Sam Lake House Capital Reserve Fund. About 8 years ago, the tax laws changed, and it is now required that the town take a portion of the earnings each year. Citizens Bank requires the selectmen to write them a letter each year to ask for the money, and then we put it into the Sam Lake House Capital Reserve Fund. In 2023, the DRA, Department of Revenue Administration auditors, told us that we needed to start doing a warrant article every year to put this money into the Capital Reserve Fund. So this is the second year that we're doing it, and this year we'll be using the money to fund the renovation of the Sam Lake House garage. Questions?
Take a motion first. By the end of the meeting, I'll get the order right. Thank you. Ron Turca, a second. Emily Preston. Okay, questions or comments? This is again something we did last year, thanks to the DRA. All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Green cards? Any opposed? Red cards? Article passes. So we'll now move on to Article 11, which is what Scott just referred to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 for the renovation of the Sam Lake House Town Office Garage. The said funds to come from the Sam Lake House Capital Reserve Fund, majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen, no tax impact. And Beth will address this after we get a motion. Steve Lundahl, and a second. Judy. Thank you.
Are you ready for me now?
Take it away.
All right.
Please.
So thank you very much. If you'd grant me 3 minutes of your time, I'll set the stage a little bit. So in 1940, the Sam Lake House Garage, along with the house, if you're not familiar and if you're new to town, this is the property right next to the fire pound where our current town offices are. But in 1940, the Sam Lake House Garage, along with the house and property, were left to the town of Canterbury by resident Sam Lake. In his will, Sam Lake also established a trust with the income to be used, and I'm quoting his will, for the betterment, improvements, or other purposes that might be brought about on my own place. In 2017, following several years of planning and work by the Sam Lake Committee, the Sam Lake House was redesigned and completely rebuilt to better serve as our town offices. At that time, the garage was not included in the project, though the recommendation of the committee was that it needed renovation and should be earmarked for additional town storage. In 2018, the garage did get a new concrete floor and a few structural improvements, but nothing else. So 8 years have passed since then. It's finally time, and there's finally enough money in the cap reserve account for the Sam Lake House Garage to be renovated and to become a useful and necessary part of the town office property. So when the Sam Lake House was rebuilt in 2017, there was a fire storage room in the design, and it seemed generous at that time. And it was certainly an improvement over the flooding basement or the difficult to access upstairs rooms. But today, the room that was designed for only cabinets and boxes also functions as office space for the land use administrator, building inspector, the planning board secretary, town treasurer, and the supervisors of the checklist. And in short, it is overcrowded. And even in this digital age, there are many paper records that the town is required to keep by law. To make room for the office staff upstairs, we can't just move the boxes down to the basement. Because despite best efforts, sometimes the basement intermittently still has water issues. It's a bigger problem, though, that it's down a steep flight of stairs, so it is not ADA compliant. So we couldn't hire somebody who just can't lug a box of files down to the basement. And that's not allowed under ADA. And money from the Sam Lake Trust must be used for the Sam Lake property, and the garage is the last piece of property that needs repair and restoration. So the warrant article we're about to vote on proposes to use the money that's been in the Sam Lake Capital Reserve account to repair and renovate the garage into a space for long-term, secure, weather-safe, and accessible file storage for the town of Canterbury. Initial estimates of the cost of this renovation are somewhat staggering, $70,000 to $80,000. At the start of 2025, the Sam Lake Cap Reserve Fund had $72,369 in it, And in early summer, we're going to receive a required distribution of another $12,000, bringing the total in the cap reserve fund to slightly more than $84,000. This should be in excess of the cost of the renovation, so there will be no tax impact. And the select board supports this one.
Great, thank you, Beth. Are there questions or comments? Judy?
Question. I assume then, from what you've said, that the town selectmen have gone to several companies and asked how much the renovations of the building would cost. And also, will the renovated building have the same footprint as the current garage? Or will it be expanded for future use for all those file cabinets and the things that need to go?
Can I answer now? So far, we've had two estimates on the work, but it will be put out to bid. It has not yet been put out for an actual bid, but the estimates of the work have been between the $70,000 and the $80,000 range. And as far as the footprint, it's really a renovation, so it should look exactly the same, except not haunted anymore. It will still have the sliding doors, it will still have its historic appearance. We've run it by the Historic District Commission, so we got the thumbs up from them. As far as future expansion, that hasn't even been discussed. The space that's there now is sufficient to help take care of the office staff, making room for people. And it's a pretty large space for files, so as far as we can see, that will do us for a long time. I suppose in the future, somebody might look at it and say it seems to need expanding, but there's no plans for that now. It should look just the same, except again, not haunted.
Are you looking to climate control it as well?
Yes, that's part of the cost. It will be elevated, it will be insulated, it will have a heat pump, so it will be warm and cool. It'll be a dry, secure, weather-tight space.
And may I assume that the storage for the Canterbury Fair items will no longer be able to be stored there?
It would not be possible to do it, to have it serve both purposes, no.
Okay, that answers my question.
Other questions? Rick?
Rick Crawford, Pierce Road. I'm one of the big five at the Canterbury Fair. And this is woeful, but to be expected news. Does anybody have a dry barn for rent? We could pay maybe $100 a year in rent. I see David's hiding his face. This is overdue. I can't quite wrap my mind around why making the basement ADA compliant is not much less than 80 grand. But that could be.
Are you asking why we didn't make
Yeah.
the basement? Okay. I do not believe that that was actually looked at. The Sam Lake House garage is still the last original piece of that property, and it's a piece that has not been renovated or dealt with at all. It's going to fall in on itself, and we won't have a Sam Lake garage before too long. It's time to bring that piece up to the useful purpose and become part of the town office property that we can use and be proud of instead of having people not look at.
No, I don't have an argument with that at all. I do have an argument with your statement that the Sam Lake House garage is now going to be dedicated to a unique and necessary purpose for the town, because I really think that the Canterbury Fair is a unique and necessary part of the town.
I would agree that it is. Unfortunately, I think the storage for the fair, and again, this is me personally speaking, for a one-day event is difficult when there are town needs that are ongoing every day and aren't getting smaller. We're getting more staff, we're getting more files. The room that seemed generous when the building was designed is getting crowded. That space that is a town building on town property, that we have a fund that is earmarked specifically for making it a useful part of the town, and it seems the time to do it.
Well, I'm just going to vote against it for my own selfish purposes, so there you go.
Okay,
So
thank
you
you.
speak in opposition.
Yeah.
Others? Yes, come up to the mic. Yes, I am Jim.
I just have a quick question. How long do we need
Name
to
and,
use?
where you live.
Jan Cody, Baptist Hill Road. I lived in the Sam Lake House for 21 years. I have a big thing about that. But anyway, my question is, how long do we have to keep those documents that you're talking about? IRS only makes you keep them for 7 years. Why are we keeping all these documents for so long?
That is an excellent question, and the Municipal Records Committee, which just started meeting this year, spent at least 3 meetings going through, what was it, about a 15-page document of all the documents that a town has and is required to keep, and who owns them, and how long you have to keep them, and who is responsible for them, and what boxes they are in, what they have to be marked. It is a much more complicated and bigger set of documents that you would think, especially in the digital age.
Right.
We will be keeping some of them digitally, but there are a lot of paper copies that need to be kept by law. And the Municipal Records Committee is, it depends. Some of them are 3 months, some of them are 3 years, some of them are forever. There are some documents that you are not allowed to get rid of.
You answered my question.
Thank you. Yes, other comment, question?
Alexandria from Moreland. So, are you fixing the basement for these? Is the basement going to be dry, right? That's what you're doing?
The warrant article is for the Sam Lake garage that has no basement. So that is going to be, the basement that I spoke of before is the basement under the Sam Lake house,
Yeah.
which will not be used for document storage.
I got it. Thanks.
Other comments or questions? Yes?
Hello, Randy Johnson, Laurel Road. The garage for the Sam Lake House is very small. I can't imagine it's going to be able to house that much over time. Was the option of secure off-site file storage explored, where some type of facility that specializes in this ever looked at?
To my knowledge, that was not looked at, but if you're talking small, the garage is a one-car size garage, which if you've been in it, you can see it's probably, well, I can't say how much bigger it is than the file storage room we have now. The file storage room we have now might almost be adequate for a number of more years without all the people in it. But with people keep coming in and the files needing to move out, I would suspect that building has got enough room in it for quite a number of years. Think of a one-car garage. and think of the stacks of filing cabinets. It's going to hold a lot. In addition, we still will be able to keep some files in the Sam Lake House, and there will still be some files that will be digital. We suspect it will keep us in good stead for a number of years.
So I'm looking at this space in front of me right here, and I'm thinking my car could fit in it. And it's not very big, like you potentially have to go high. I hear you. I'm looking at this space right here, and it looks like a car would fit in it. That's not very big. You'd have to go high up or make it so you can barely walk in there.
I can't speak to the actual footprint of the building or how they're going to arrange it, but it seems it's a lot more space than we currently have available to us, and it's space that still needs to be fixed and part of the property. It will still be useful for file storage. It may not be as grandiose as a 3-car garage, but it's a lot more than the space we currently have available with the number of people that are trying to use that space as well. I think once we get estimates and they start measuring and looking at how stuff fits from where it is to where it's going to go, we haven't gotten that far down the road, so I don't know how to answer that question in more detail, except somebody's looking for the mic, so I'm open.
The only thing I want to add, Randy, is at this point, the renovation is no tax impact. If we were to rent an off-site facility, there would be an ongoing and forever tax impact. We'd have to pay a bill every year. So I see this as a very cost-efficient solution for the foreseeable future.
But there will be maintenance costs for this. There'll be electricity, there'll be, you said there's gonna have a heat pump. There's gonna have to be some sort of more climate which have to pay for the storage.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Dolly. I live on Laurel Road.
Right up to your mouth.
I'm still Nancy Roy. In 2017, I was a member of a building committee, and we studied the Sam Lake House, and we recreated it, and we recommended not putting a basement under the Sam Lake House because the fire department wants to live there. And it has every right to live there. And no matter what you do, it's going to live there. So I would be very careful about what you decide to design next. Make sure you get people who know what they're talking about, because some of us were dismissed for speaking in such a way that it went against popular, how would you that? So I'm just cautioning. It needs to be done in a thorough way. Be thorough. All of it.
Thank you.
Kevin Moran, Baptist Road. Just wondering, taking any old building and making it airtight, waterproof, fireproof, the air conditioning and the security for that matter, it's going to have to be secure in some respect. To an old building with a small square footage of that, do you really think $80,000 is a true estimate? Or is that just a starting point? I'm not arguing the fact that there needs to be a place for record storage. I do question how often those records need to be retrieved. And perhaps offsite is for those things that, if it was 80%, that never gets looked at again, but legally has to be kept. Maybe offsite is an alternative. But I wonder if the money isn't better spent, since we do have that basement, and it is much more square footage, and whether a lift and whether better foundation drains, sump pumps and whatnot, dehumidification. You already have the square footprint much larger than the garage. And it's handy, although if you understand if you're in a wheelchair or not, but that money could be spent for some sort of a dumbwaiter system or whatnot put in. I question whether $80,000 and let's go is really the smart money in the long term because of the small square footage that we're going to gain and taking an old building. It's not like constructing a new building, maybe I can see that. But an old building that's going to have a movable door like it currently has, I'm not sure. Even though as a historic district chairperson, I'd love to see that stay. I don't know that that's the most secure, energy efficient way to store records. So I question the 80,000, and I hope that maybe we could take another look at the estimates and actually not estimates, get real quotes before we spend money. Thanks. Bob Sneeson, Hackleboro Road. I too was on the Sam Lake House building committee with Nancy and John Anderson and Mark Hopkins and other people who designed the new Sam Lake House. And understand that we went through a number of iterations of the floor plans and the designs. Thank you, Nancy. And we did determine that we needed that space for town storage, and that while we could get away with the file storage room inside the building for a few years, eventually we would have to move out. But as Beth noted, the combination of the square footage in the garage and the file storage that will still be in the office itself, that should handle our needs for the foreseeable future. The other thing I would mention in terms of off-site storage is that we still run a part-time town government, and those records need to be accessible to our team, and they need to be accessible, generally speaking, upon request. So the idea that we could drive someone to get up from what they were doing and drive down to the storage units at the industrial park is probably not practical. And having those records under the control and close to the staff is important. There's also important to keep those records climate controlled. For years they lived upstairs in the attic with the squirrels and the mice and other things, and there was a lot of cleaning to be done when those records moved downstairs. And so I speak in support of this warrant article. I also understand that from my recollection from being on the committee, that Mark Hopkins felt that the garage actually has more historic features and elements to it architecturally than the house did. And I do believe the plan is to preserve the exterior of the garage as it currently looks. The sliding door would, I understand, be the facade of the garage, but inside there would actually be a weather-tight wall behind the big sliding front door. That's what I know, or that's what I suspect. So I speak in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Greg Kaminsky, Intervale Road. I just want to get some clarity for myself first before my question. So my understanding is Sam Lake House Trust is only to be used for the Sam Lake property, correct?
Correct.
Correct. I'm hearing from other people here that garage is used for multiple purposes right now, storing of stuff for the Canterbury Fair and other things like that. My question is, why the rush to do this right now? Well, I know we have the money, but if we're going to get about $15,000 every year from the trust, and we can only use it for that property, wouldn't it make more sense to figure out what exactly we need and will want, not just right now, but in the future? So that's my thought.
I would say that it's been 8 years that we've been not doing anything with that property, or even longer. It doesn't feel like a rush, except for the fact that it's getting more crowded in the building with personnel, and the money there now, from the estimates we've gotten, seems sufficient to do the job. We don't have all the details, but we also haven't put it out to an official bid. So I think the numbers that we have were sufficient for us to bring it to the warrant, and we have the money, and we are getting less crowded in the town offices. So it doesn't seem like a rush, and we will be getting more disbursements from that trust, and that will be used to maintain both the garage and the Sam Lake House as it is. So It's not like the money isn't going to be used, but the money seems sufficient now to start the project. The estimates we've gotten seem to be within the money that we have, and the need is there. So this seemed a good time, not a rushed time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to add a confirmation to something that was said earlier and expand upon. Okay. I have a great deal of respect for Kevin Bragg, but when my husband, who's staying home tonight, was first elected to selectman, his first duty within a week was to get sump pumps going in the basement of the Sam Lake House. We had horrendous rain and melting. The pond itself was overflowing and running directly into the basement, and it could not keep up with 3 sump pumps running. We are only going to be looking at more extreme and unpredictable weather. And with a basement that is in the same stratum as the pond, there's not going to be a way to reliably keep that dry. So I think we need the storage someplace that is above ground. We have a plan, and if in 10 years it's not enough, we'll address it then. I speak in favor of this.
I'm Kathleen McKay from Shaker Road. I'd like to speak in favor of this. I'd like to speak in favor of this as somebody who works in the Sam Lake House every day and also the chair of the Municipal Records Committee. RSA 33 -A, I believe, is the RSA that governs record retention in the state of New Hampshire. So to echo what Beth said earlier, we have looked into exactly what needs to be kept and how long, and many things are required to be kept permanently. As for working in the office every day, I do go and use those records almost every day. Certainly every week. We have a lot of planning board records, we have a lot of building inspection records, building permits, and anytime we get a right to know request, we are legally required to be able to present that information as soon as we can. So having it right there has made it pretty helpful. The basement is an issue, even for an able-bodied person like myself. It's been difficult because we have boxes full of records, and they could be like 40-pound box that we're trying to carefully go down the steep stairs with. So it's not the safest thing, and as somebody who is also kind of HR for the town, it is an ADA violation, and it is something that we need to be concerned about from our insurance rates, because if somebody fell down the stairs, it would be a workers' comp claim, and that would increase our insurance rates. So I feel like there's a lot of really good reasons to do this. The building needs to get fixed anyway. And I do believe it will be long-term the right space, because it does seem like statewide and federally, things are moving towards accepting electronic copies. So even if in 10 years we have too many boxes of what we currently have, we might be allowed to digitize some of those in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Ryan, Old Tilton Road. I move the question.
We will now vote on moving the question. All those in favor? Those green cards. Those opposed? Okay, the question has been moved. We'll now take a vote on the article. All those in favor? Green cards. All those opposed? Red cards. The article carries. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 for the purpose of weatherization of the Elkins Public Library. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen. I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And Tom Franco is going to talk to this.
Hi, Tom Franco, Laurel Road, part of the Canterbury Community Power Committee. So what we're doing here is saving the town money. So we are spending this year, but over the next 25 years, we'll be getting back over 2.5 times what we're spending this year in energy dollars. So the library is leaking a lot of energy. It's poorly insulated. Part of it acts like a chimney and is sucking the heat right out of the building. So we'd like to better insulate the building. I hear that the heating system is old and it's going to need to be replaced. So the first thing you do is tighten up the building before you do that. So that's the reason we're doing it. We should save over $55,000 over the next 25 years. Calculating, the increase in price of propane and electric rates by themselves will add up to quite a bit of budget for energy dollars. So the less we use, the better. So over the past year, we worked with the library, Rachel, Unitil, the utility, Resilient Building Group. These have been several meetings, lots of emails. We had an audit done just for weatherization, and then a detailed list of all of the work that would get done for this amount of money. And recently we got a rebate letter from Unitil, which will bring the cost down, but we're going to leave it at the amount that it's at now. So the payback on all of this is about 8 years. And then after that, you're going to start making money every year on the savings. So I ask in support of this, please vote for the weatherization of the library. Thank you.
Do we have questions or comments? All right, we'll have a vote. All those in favor, green cards. All those opposed, red cards. Article passes. Thank you. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to establish a voting equipment capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35(1) for the purpose of purchasing voting equipment and to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be placed in this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Majority vote required, recommended by the Selectmen. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Cliff, thank you. Second? Steve? Sam will address this.
Article 13 is very similar to the earlier article we talked about with the voting machine. One of the pieces of equipment that we are looking at purchasing is in conjunction with HB 1264, which is requiring the town to purchase an accessible voting station that will be used at every election, whereas previously it was only required for state and federal elections, and this equipment was loaned to us by the state of New Hampshire. But sometime before the 2026 midterms, the state will no longer be loaning us this equipment, and we will be required to purchase a set of equipment for the town. This capital reserve fund will help us begin to save money for this purpose. We don't exactly know when the state will stop letting us use this. We used it for the March election a couple days ago, but we are having to return the equipment back to them this week. We don't know exactly when this equipment will be available for purchase, so if we have a capital reserve account in place, when that is ready, then we can purchase it.
All right, any questions?
Patrice Rochler, Center Road. Apparently Basically, we're getting new voting machines. I mean, a new set of, our current voting machine does not, won't be able to be used any longer because it will be certified by the election board. Is that correct?
We are looking at a new voting machine. That was a process we started in 2022, and then we asked for money in 23, and then we've got money this year. The machine that we currently have is as old as I am, so we're looking at a 28-year-old machine. And we are also looking at a machine that no longer has any parts. So there's no longer any service for it. It's basically what it's come down to.
Right, and that's statewide.
That's statewide.
That's statewide.
Correct.
And the testing that you were talking about earlier was just to figure out which new voting machines the state would allow us to use.
Correct, yes. The Ballot Law Commission has approved 2 machines. Yep.
Does any of what we talked about and voted on for voting machines, does that address that issue as well?
This is a separate issue.
Completely separate.
Okay, so we have no money, we're not putting any money aside for buying a new voting machine that the state tells us we have to have, but we'll not pay for it.
The $7,000 we talked about earlier is going to pay for the new voting machine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to pay for the new Smartmatic or whatever it is.
Separate, yep.
Separate, okay. Are we going to get one this year?
I hope so.
Okay.
Certainly hope so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, so this is for an accessible voting system when we know that we have to get it ourselves instead of borrowing it, and we're not quite sure when that'll happen. The machine that we are replacing our old machine with is a ballot counting device. So it counts all the ballots. It's not just an accessible voting unit. That's a different thing.
Mary, Northwest Road, I'm just wondering about this establishing of a trust fund for such, do we anticipate needing more and more? It's my understanding that a trust fund is kind of like, or a capital fund is for stuff that's ongoing year after year after year. I'm just curious if this is appropriate for that. I don't know, because I don't know anything about voting machines and what other kinds of equipment you might use. Is that something you would look to put money in every year, or is this just kind of a one-shot deal?
I guess I would see this as a continuing as things evolve. Because we have voting equipment, we could use it for new booths, we could use it for tables, we could use it for other voting equipment, not just the technological side of things. So as those needs arise, we could add more money to it. But again, we don't know how much this is going to cost, so we need a little bit of seed money to start this capital reserve fund. And it could be 6 months, it could be 2 years. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Let's vote. All those in favor? Green cards. All opposed? Red cards. The article passes. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to establish a renewable energy capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35(1) for the purpose of purchasing renewable energy systems and to raise and appropriate some $1,000 to be placed in this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Additional funds would come from the community power adder funds and will not require any tax funding. Majority vote required, recommended by the Selectmen. Tom Franco is going to address this one as well after I get a motion. Al Edelstein, and a second? Ron Turcotte.
Still Tom Franco. I'm here in support of a warrant article to start a capital reserve fund for the energy-related projects going on in town and in future ones. A little history, this is a little harder to explain than the last one. In 2023, Canterbury joined the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire to provide lower electric rates
And as part of that, we came up with a Canterbury basic rate that included, as of last year, an adder, which was 0.2 cents. That adder is accumulating every month. And depending on how many people sign up or don't sign up, we can either count on it or we can't. But so far, we have about $5,000 in there. And in order to use those funds, we have to bring them back to the town. And in order to bring them back to the town, we got to set up a capital reserve fund. And that's just a requirement for that. So as soon as we approve and set up the fund, we will get those funds transferred to the town. And I don't know if it will be monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually. Sorry. So the reserve fund, when it's funded with these adder funds, will be used to help pay for future energy-related projects that will save the town and the taxpayers more energy-related dollars. So please vote to set up the capital reserve fund, and I'll gladly answer any questions.
All right, do we have any comments or questions?
Anybody mind if I stand here with my teacher voice? No, use the microphone.
Okay. My question is, would these funds be able to be used toward the weatherization of the town library? We've got a capital reserve fund being set up. We have a need in town. Could some of those funds go toward that purpose, particularly if the $20,000 for the weatherization of the library does not cover it?
Well, good question. And, we were looking to fund other projects with the money besides the weatherization. And $5,000 won't cover the library project. It could supplement and subtract from the $20,000 if the town wanted to do that.
Bear in mind, we have voted to approve $20,000 for the purpose of weatherizing the public library. We cannot change that.
Right.
We can use additional funds for other energy needs, just to clarify.
Beth McQueen, Southwest Road. I am not opposed in any way to renewable energy, as many know. I also am very much in favor of energy efficiency and weatherization. And when I read this today in the warrant article, I realized that this was very narrowly worded, that someday we might come here looking for a project like the weatherization at the library to be funded by this. And we might, our selectmen at that time might need to say no, because this was for renewable energy. I wonder if we would consider modification here, and I have written this out, to add energy efficiency into the purpose of the fund.
So, Beth, I'm unsure what the provisions of the money we're getting from the adder can be used for. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. So, I guess for me it's a big, I don't know. Right, but it's to establish the fund to then get the adder from the community college, which I think I remember when it was set up. Kathy, do you remember when that was set up? What okay, thank you.
There are no restrictions on those funds.
Okay.
The town can
elect to use the money for that.
Okay, so for weatherization, as a first?
Yeah.
Charlie?
So I would propose to amend the article to read, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but to see if the town will vote to establish an energy efficiency and renewable energy capital reserve fund under the provisions of the RSA for the purpose of purchasing energy efficiency and renewable energy systems, and to raise and appropriate all of that for the city.
So you have that in writing? So an amendment has been offered. And we have a second. We will have discussion on the amendment.
Emily Preston, South Ross Road, and I speak in support of the amendment. I think that the best energy that we use is that which we do not use. It's the best energy conservation we can do for tax dollars and for our planet. Thank you.
Steve Mundell, Vision Project. While I'm in favor of how's that? There we go.
Now, we're still addressing the amendment.
Right, that's right. So while I'm in favor of amending it to include energy efficiency, the wording I'm a little concerned about, because the way you worded it, you said to purchase energy efficiency equipment, and not everything related to energy efficiency is necessarily equipment.
It's actually stated as to purchase energy efficiency and.
So speaking as a former energy, sort of energy out there, so.
And renewable energy systems. So it's not necessarily equipment.
Just be careful how you word it, because otherwise you're gonna have to go out and buy blower doors and not, put somebody's, air system, air system, so that's not important.
Okay, good point. Other comments on the amendment?
I'm Evan Christensen of Baptist Road, and my question is, does RSA 35.1 allow for that expansion of the definition?
Hang on. Okay, so what might be the best path for this? Because this is not amending a capital reserve fund proposal before it exists is not necessarily so simple. Well, it is simple, but the best path to doing it is to set up the fund and then next year have a warrant article that specifically amends the purpose of the capital reserve account. To do it as an amendment is not, may not be allowed by the TRA. Even though it's a small fund, it's as Steve said, the wording is very important. It is a simple matter for town meeting next year to amend the purpose of the capital reserve fund, just like you would if you thought you were saving for a highway grader and no longer needed one and wanted to move those funds to purchase some other piece of equipment. Same idea. That's the easy way to do it. Because we can't say for sure that if this amendment were to pass, that would pass muster with the people that watch over that state government.
So the answer is I don't know.
The answer is I don't know. My recommendation would be if we consider not amending the article, withdrawing the amendment, voting on the article, and then determining in the next year exactly what we might want to expand such a capital fund for and putting that on the warrant. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question.
I will withdraw the amendment in hopes that we can clean this up next year.
Okay, thank you, Beth. The amendment has been withdrawn. Is there more discussion of setting up the proposed capital reserve fund? Seeing no one coming up, we will take a vote. This is on the Article 14. All those in favor, green cards. All opposed, red cards. Article passes. This is democracy. It's good. Article 15. We have a handful left to go. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,500 for the feasibility and suitability study for the town of Canterbury transfer station to renovate or expand the transfer station at the current site, or determine if the current site is not suitable for this purpose and authorize the withdrawal of $6,500 from the transfer station upgrade capital reserve fund created for that purpose. Majority vote required. Recommended by the selectmen, no tax impact. And I need a motion for that. Rich Marcoux. And a second. Yes. Agenda. Okay. Let's see. Kent, I believe you're going to address that.
So if you go to page 35 again in your town report, you'll see in the capital reserve funds the transfer station upgrade. And we are not asking for money to be placed into that, but we are asking for the approximately $6,500 that's still contained in that fund that has been raised by interest on that money originally, to be put towards a study of the transfer station by an engineer or engineering team. And so the selectmen are in favor of this. We're asking you to approve that $6,500 transfer to a fund that can look at the transfer station with a scientific eye.
All right, comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, green cards? All those opposed, red cards? Article passes. Article 16, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $10,500 for the purpose of holding a household hazardous waste day at the Canterbury transfer station. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen. And I need a motion first. Yes, and your name? Jamie Higgins. Okay, and a second? Your name?
Leanne, Maggie.
Leanne Mackey. Okay. And I believe Rich Martin is going to speak for this. So they tell me.
Rich Marco, Baptist Hill Road. I'm chair of the Solid Waste Committee. The last time the Hazardous Waste Day was in 2016 in town, and about $14,000 was budgeted for it. The Solid Waste Committee for this year got a quote for $10,500. The exact cost is going to depend on how much stuff that we collect. But the thing is that last year it was shut down after, I believe, 4 hours. So they hit their budget capacity very quick. We're thinking of limiting things to like a certain number of items, certain number of pounds. When we do advertise this that way that it can stay open longer and we can collect more things. And then if people have more stuff, they can come back in the afternoon and so forth. There won't be any charge to the citizens other than for these funds. And we're going to advertise it heavily. The committee will advertise it heavily, let you know what can be brought in, what shouldn't be brought in, and so on and so forth.
Are there any questions or comments?
Rob Riley, Old Oak Road. I'm curious, because of demand, why this isn't a line item in the budget on an annual basis versus going to a warrant article. It is concerning if there's a limit. Where's the waste going? Is it going into the truck? Is it heading over wheelbarrow? I guess we don't know the answer to that, but I guess I'm concerned that it's going where it shouldn't go. So maybe you can address whether this should be a budget line item versus a warrant article. I mean, not for this year, of course, but for going forward, just on an operating basis.
I don't disagree. This has been, what was the last time, Rich, 2016? Yeah, it's been a long time. So, yeah, that's a lot of fingers. So it is something we can look at. In all honesty, this year specifically, we tried to make as neat a budget as we could. So that's one of the reasons why this came up as a warrant article.
If I may, it's still going against the taxpayers though. So.
Yeah, absolutely right, yeah.
Laura Proctor, 112 Ayers Road. I just have a question.
Right up to the mic.
Laura Proctor, 112 Ayers. I guess I have a question. Has anyone looked at collaborating with surrounding towns and doing a larger group hazardous waste that's like together as opposed to individual towns? As like potential cost saving measure or something like that? I don't know, I mean, Tilton, Northfield, Loudon, you know what I mean? Do they all just do them individually or do we ever think about doing one together?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yes, we did look into that. The cost is going to be the same whether we do it by ourselves or with another town. And then right now, what we're proposing is going to be for Canterbury residents only. You got to show proof of residency.
Oh.
So.
Thank you.
Donna Miller, Baptist Road. Rich, can you give us a rough idea of what will be allowed to be collected and what won't be before we vote on this?
The big discussion is latex paint will probably not be accepted.
because there's a couple things in play in that the state, there's some action by the state for places like Sherwin-Williams and stuff to be able to turn that stuff into paint stores. Wherever you buy a gallon of paint, to be able to turn that stuff in, you're gonna have to take it in. So there's legislation afoot for that. Oil-based paint will be taken, pesticides, fungicides, all kinds of chemical powders. There are very few things that won't be allowed, things that are like gasoline or explosives or fireworks, that kind of stuff, flammable stuff. But there's a very long list of acceptable items.
Other comments or questions? All right, we'll vote. All those in favor, green cards. All opposed, red cards. Article passes. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to replace the existing Packer truck with a stationary electric compactor with variable frequency drive, a compaction container, and the installation of a concrete pad. This is by petition, majority vote required, not recommended by the selectmen. And we have a motion to put that on the floor. Frank Hopper. Yes, a second. Say your name for Sam. Let's see. Steve, Raj, you're going to speak to this?
In 2018, the Solid Waste Committee put together a proposal for a series of improvements at the transfer station, one of which is the subject of this warrant article. In 2021, the town meeting approved 2 of the other improvements from the report, upgrading the electrical system and purchasing a large baler. Both the baler and the proposed electric compactor really prefer to run with 3-phase power, which we don't have. But the electrical system was upgraded from 200 amp to 400 amp. And the baler was outfitted with a VFD. So between the 400 amp and the VFD, it could function with single-phase power. It's very complicated, but fortunately, one of the authors of the report was a Cornell graduate with a degree in electrical engineering. Another of the major contributors to the report was the transfer station manager at the time. And the third contributor was another Cornell graduate who makes her living consulting with municipalities for their transfer stations. So a lot of experience, education, and technical expertise there. They also determined that the compactor could be placed where the Packer truck currently parks. And they were aware of the maps with the landfill boundaries. But even if it can't be sited there, it could always be put over where the trailers with the mixed paper sit. The 2018 report's rationale for the large baler was to increase revenue. The rationale for replacing the Packer truck with an electric compactor was that the truck was getting old, now it's 7 years older. Plus, if the incinerator ever shut down, it would be impractical to use the Packer truck to haul trash great distances. In other words, it was forward-looking risk management. My rationale for putting together this warrant article is different. In order for the compacting device on the Packer truck to operate, the engine has to be running. This means that the diesel truck is idling the entire time that the transfer station is open, exposing everyone there to diesel exhaust. For most people here, that would be 5 minutes every couple of weeks. For the people who work there, it's a more serious problem. Let me give you a few examples of the health impacts of diesel exhaust. Just 2 hours of exposure to diesel exhaust causes a decrease in the brain's functional connectivity. Long-term exposure can worsen asthma and allergies. Exposure to diesel particulate matter can cause diabetes and hardening of the arteries. Ultrafine particles produced when diesel burns are harmful to blood vessels and can increase the chances of blood clots forming in arteries, leading to heart attack or stroke. There is strong evidence that long-term occupational exposure to diesel exhaust increases the risk of lung cancer. These health effects are not in doubt. There are no contradicting studies that say, in effect, no big deal, diesel exhaust is nothing to worry about. The only unknown here is whether or not we care enough to do something about it. Thank you.
Comments or questions? Yes, come on. You're first. Start lining up.
Herbie Bachelor, Baptist Hill Road. I have multiple concerns of this article. First being, we don't own a truck that can tow that trailer, or that can that goes to Weatherization. And that backer truck gets dumped twice a week. So we're gonna have to rely on somebody else to come in and do this for us. We also don't own any trucks that can tow those trailers that we put all hay. And we own those. So my concern is if we're not going to control our own destiny, we shouldn't be in the business. And now that we just authorized the feasibility study, I think that we should wait till that comes back before we spend $60,000. Maybe, but they'll find this pack is all right. Maybe they'll find that this article is the way to go. Maybe they'll say you need a whole new spot. We don't know. Let's wait to see before we spend $60,000. And I can tell you that that building is open whenever that truck is running. I can't say positively that, you know, the diesel smoke is not harmful, but I know at the fire station we don't have any vents to take our exhaust out. So, and that building's a lot tighter than the dump. So I think we really ought to rethink this out.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Leanne Mackey, Old Chilton Road. Thank you. I'm actually on the Solid Waste Committee along with Steve, and I'm going to oppose this proposal because we have been approved to do a feasibility and suitability study, and that study is comprehensive enough to tell us whether or not what is proposed in that warrant article will actually work, given all of the constraints and limitations that are going on the site. So I'm going to say, please don't vote for that.
Russell Maley, Southwest Road. Steve and I met with hydraulics company and an engineer, and we learned from them that they are pretty confident, almost 100% certain, that you could integrate a standalone hydraulic power unit in the building. Wouldn't be part of the truck. That could be, with quick disconnect fittings, you could operate the compactor on the truck. And this option would be about a third of the cost of the compactor. So I think due to time constraints with this meeting, he couldn't readdress his warrant article to be in time. So to achieve the same result of no pollution in the building, like 20,000.
So are you speaking in opposition?
Yes, opposition to this warrant article. That's it, thank you.
Hi, Roy Plisto, Old Tilton Road.
I'm in a kind of unique position because I'm on the solid waste committee and the highway department, so I'm actually working at the transfer station. And I just want to share some feedback from people there about the exhaust situation. Nobody there seems very concerned about it because the truck is actually exhausted outside into the open air. The real concern about exhaust is about all the cars driving into the building itself and exhausting right in everybody's faces, which is not being addressed, and there are a lot of things that need to be addressed at the transfer station right now. If there is a concern with exhaust, there are also other solutions, such as putting a filtration system on the truck that can filter the exhaust or purify the exhaust in a more economical way. I feel like there are other things to explore. This may be ahead of it. We might be getting ahead of ourselves with actually making this improvement right now. So that's all I'm going to add.
Okay. Scott?
So as was noted at the beginning, this petition is not supported by the select board or the solid waste committee. And I think it's been said by at least a couple of people here tonight. I think that this is premature. The three-phase power, the last time we got an estimate was in 2017, and the cost in 2017 was $136,000. So that would drive the cost up considerably. As I think Steve mentioned, it is questionable if the concrete pad could be installed where the current Packer truck is. And I am very leery of installing anything on that site. I would like to see us stay there for as long as we can. And I think that the study that we're about to undertake is going to answer a lot of questions for us. So once again, the select board is not in support of this resolution.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I just want to, Judy Elliott from Budget Road. I have a question about the study that I guess has been authorized. Will the study include an assessment of health hazards for the staff at the transfer station and how those can be addressed?
So we haven't, tonight is step one. So the next step is going to be contract with the company to find the engineering firm to define what $6,500 will get us. So that certainly, as was mentioned, the welfare of our workers is of course a concern of ours. So, and I agree that idling vehicles inside the building are probably a greater danger than the Packer idling outside.
But both of those dangers or potential dangers will be addressed in this engineering study.
If we can afford it. That's all.
Okay, I would make those aspects of the engineering study a high priority. It sounds like you do.
Agreed. Yeah.
Sorry, very brief, Bob Steenson once again. I just want everybody to rest assured that the town did take Stephen's concerns about air quality seriously. The town administrator contracted with an air quality expert who did some preliminary testing and did not find that we had particular issues inside the building with diesel particulate. I would also tiptoe out onto another limb and suggest that if we were really concerned about the health of our transfer station employees, we would help them quit smoking. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so we're going to vote. All those in favor of this article, green cards. All those opposed, red cards. The article does not pass. Last article, Article 18. To see if the town will vote to change the purpose of the existing transfer station upgrade and capital reserve fund for the purpose of doing the feasibility and suitability study on the current transfer station and any future engineering and site work on this site or any other potential site. This is by petition. It is a 2/3 vote required. It is not recommended by the selectmen. There is no tax impact. and Rich Schmuck, who is going to speak to us after I get a motion. Judy, do I have a second? Steve?
This is real easy. This article, because of the timing, when we had for the article for the study, and the time frame when articles had to be submitted, and when the selectmen submitted their budget and had their recommendations as to what they were going to support and what they weren't going to support, we didn't have the time to wait. We wanted to make sure that something in regards to a study at the transfer station was on the floor tonight. So the study was approved. I'm going to recommend as the petitioner that we vote this one down. It's a duplicate, it'll make things more complicated. Please vote it down.
All right. Any comments? Well, let's vote. All those in favor, green cards. All those opposed, red cards. Okay, that goes down to defeat. Thank you very much. And it is almost 9:15. This is the time of the meeting that we can transact any other business that may legally come before the meeting. If anyone has any new business they'd like to bring in.
Okay, it's really not business, it's just an announcement that the Belmont High School, Belmont Guilford boys hockey team is playing in the championship finals tomorrow, 12:15 at the SNHU Arena. Go Bulldogs.
Dave Gerald, 1 South Foster Road. A question and maybe a comment, depending on the answer to the question. Referring back to Rick's concerns about Canterbury Fair, gear, equipment, tables that are now stored at the Sam Lake Garage. Has the board reached out to the Canterbury Fair about how to handle that equipment? What happens when it gets tossed out of the newly refurbished Sam Lake Garage?
Well, we will hardly be tossing everything out on the curb unnecessarily.
I knew that.
I believe that we will be able to work with our neighbors, but when we have a time frame for when construction will start, I would hope that the fair committee and the community will be able to work together to look for a new home for the equipment.
Thanks. I knew it wouldn't be tossed.
No.
But the comment is, the volunteers, Rick said he was one of the Canterbury Fair 5. There are Canterbury 500 others who work not on a single day for the Canterbury Fair, but for months beforehand. And they do not expect applause seeing the crowd that comes to Canterbury where we can show off our town. It's kind of a nice repayment. But they do expect support from the town. And I hope that the board will help find a place, possibly using Sam Lake money, since this is kind of connected to a Sam Lake project. If rental is needed somewhere else to store this very important equipment.
I do not believe the terms of the trust would cover that.
Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you for your thought. Before we go to Kevin, we have a request from one of our select board to take a picture.
I'm taking off my select board hat and putting on my Canterbury newsletter hat. It's a great picture for everybody to have their yes cards up. If everybody agrees to just put them up, so I'm not taking a picture of you voting on anything in particular. If everybody could just
Put it right in front of your face if you want.
and realize that. Thank you.
We'll let you know later what you approved. Kevin.
Kevin Bragg,
I'm speaking this time on behalf of the Canterbury Historic District Commission. We are searching for a new member, a new voting member, and we are also happy to have anybody who's interested in joining us as an alternate. Alternate, we could use 2 votes. As most boards, we're starting to age, and people are starting to retire, and we would love to have some new blood. You don't have to live in one of the 2 historic districts within town, but we certainly would hope that people in those 2 districts would be interested. But as long as you're a Canterbury resident, you're welcome to join us. We meet 3rd Wednesday of the month, 7 o'clock at the Meeting House. And if you need any more information, track me down. Thanks.
I'm Evan Christensen, and I just wanted to say that this year for the election, for the website, it was not clear that the school board and the school district's ballot would be in during the same time period at the same location. The only ballot listed on the town website was the one for town officials, making it look like this election would only be uncontested.
Okay, thank you for that. Is Dolly a resident?
My name is Rachel Eves, Center Road, and joining me is non-resident Dolly Parton to speak on behalf of the Friends of Elkins Public Library. I'm actually here to speak to Canterbury residents aged 0 to 5, which I notice there are not many in attendance. But according to the census, Canterbury actually has about 110 children 0 to 5, so if you might know some of them, know their parents, grandparents, or know that we have some new residents on the way. So I want to share the exciting news on behalf of the Friends of Elkins Public Library, who worked to bring Dolly Parton's Imagination Library to Canterbury children. So Dolly Parton started this program in her hometown 30 years ago because her own father was illiterate or learned how to read and write. And it provides a free book gift every single month to children from when they're born through age 5. You can join anytime. And I encourage everyone to spread the word. You sign up online, go to imaginationlibrary.com. Put in your details, and you'll get an awesome book in the mail every month. Mainly paid for by the Dolly Foundation, but it does require a local affiliate's support. So if you do not have a Canterbury resident age 0 to 5 and want to support the program, I encourage you to donate to the Friends of Elkins Public Library or the Canterbury affiliate supporting the program in our town.
Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank Tupper from Ayers Road, and I have a gratitude, a thank you, and I have a complaint to the board. One, I want to thank you for what you did to help us taxpayers when you're making the decision to take $500,000 out of unemployment to a deferment. I think we owe you a vote of thanks, and it shows that government is something that we analyze. Thank you for doing that. I want to also ask the question, maybe rather than a criticism, who was it that made the decision to use this wonderfully fine print? It was a lot of fun trying to go through it for somebody with my eyesight. Can we change that for next year? Question?
More pages, bigger type, more pages, more money, but okay. Thanks to Sam, we saved $3,000 on the printing of the town report this year for finding a new printer and a new way of binding. So $3,000 was a nice savings to realize, but.
Oh, okay, so it keeps winning.
Nice magnifying glass, Frank.
You have to pay extra for the large print edition.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's a good idea.
Judy Nelson, and I'm speaking
on behalf of the Canterbury Benevolence Society, which doesn't affect the town directly, but it does because our attempt is to keep as much clothing out of the solid waste stream by organizing, this will be our third annual clothing swap. We've done one in the spring and one in the fall, and it works. You bring stuff, clothes, blankets, textiles, and then you take. There is no money exchange. This year, our clothing exchange will take place the first weekend in May. You may start dropping off. At the parish hall, we had to make a site change. At the parish hall from noon on Thursday, the 1st, anytime on Friday the 2nd, and shop till you drop on Saturday the 3rd. Thank you very much for supporting us and supporting your town. And there was some good stuff last fall.
I got some great Hawaiian shirts, I'll tell you that.
All right, Beth McWin here with more energy efficiency. How many of you were at a place that was very, very windy last week? Anybody? How many people have windows that rattled during that storm? If you're one of those, this window insert could help you. And the Energy Committee, again, is going to be doing a window dressers event. These are priced by size, but if you have any financial issues, we will do these on a sliding scale, and we are working on getting funding for that. So please get your orders in. We'll come and measure your windows. We and you together will make them, and you will take them home. So window dressers will happen this fall. Here's something that says April 3rd. Find out more. Oh, I guess we're going to be doing an information session on April 3rd about window dressers. So join us at the town hall at 6:30 on April 3rd if you would like to learn more. And if you would like to become part of the Energy Committee, we have one opening left. So if you would like to join us, you can see me or Ruth Keith in the back, who is our chair, and we'd love to welcome a new member. Thank you.
You just have to have energy. All right. Ken said something.
I just have a couple comments. One on those window dressers. You all voted in the town hall that probably uses half the energy it did last year. Those things work. There's actually a budget item in here for $973, which is probably the best money we've ever spent to build those windows and put them in. So thank you for all that did that. The second thing, if you turn your page 49 of your town report, you're going to see a young man shoveling something, we don't know, but David retired this year from our highway department after 40 years of dedicated service. So you want to see what David Heath looked like 40 years ago? There's David.
I'm going to adjourn this meeting, but on your way out, I think there's still some things you might want to snack on over at the farmer's market area. So thank you. Have a safe night.